Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending our webinar. My name is Jonathan Neymark, and I will be your host, your co-host this afternoon. Before I introduce our guest, Dana Lee from Generation, I just wanted to go through a couple housekeeping items that will hopefully help us have an amazing and really productive discussion this afternoon. So two things are at the bottom of the Zoom tray that may be helpful to you. There is a question and answer tool. So if you do have a question for myself or Dana, please use that tool and we will try and answer your questions via that tool. There is also the chat button at the bottom. If you want to kind of comment along, we love to have an interactive discussion. So please use that tool at the bottom. And if you're interested in hearing more about Codecademy and about its integration with Skillsoft, please feel free to pop your email into the chat box and someone from either the Codecademy or the Skillsoft team will be in touch with you either later on today or tomorrow. So that's the kind of boring, probably hopefully the most boring part of today's conversation. And now I really want to welcome Dana Lee, who works at Generation and who's been really a partner and a client of Codecademy really for I think maybe the last 2 or 3 years. And we have really built an really amazing and productive relationship, which we'll sort of get into later on today. Dana, before we start, can I just ask you to introduce yourself, give everyone who you are?
Yeah, great to be here. My name's Dana. I'm based in Atlanta, and I am the Regional Director of Curriculum and Instruction for Generation, which is a global education to employment nonprofit. Our methodology involves a very comprehensive 7-step process to recruiting, training, placing, supporting people who are underemployed or unemployed. Our mission is to get folks into careers and work trajectories that otherwise would be inaccessible without a supportive program like ours. So really quickly, in the before times, before March of 2020, technical roles were a small piece of our training portfolio. It was a thing we were experimenting on and had some ideas for things we wanted to test and innovate. That quickly changed when the tech industry was one of few places that was still going to be hiring in the aftermath of all the changes from the pandemic. So very quickly, we transitioned to looking at roles in software development, data, cloud engineering, operations. And that's when we started looking for content partners. And making a long story very short, now here we are with Codecademy.
Thank you, Dana. And actually today, hopefully we'll kind of unpack that story a little bit and really dive into how Generation is using us and really kind of the results that they've seen amongst the people that they're trying to connect with jobs or opportunities. Before we do that, if you are wondering who I am, my name is Jonathan Neymark. I have been at Codecademy for almost 4 years. I have been the general manager of Codecademy for Business for the past 2.5. Codecademy for Business is the part of Codecademy that works with businesses, organizations, schools, and we have really worked with hundreds, if not almost 1,000 organizations in the past 2.5 years to use our platform to help onboard, train, retrain, and reskill employees. It has been kind of the highlight of my personal career to really work with Codecademy and work with our clients and our partners to help their workforce become better versions of themselves. So again, welcome to everyone. I hope today is super productive. I hope we can help you understand more about Codecademy and really talk about some use cases of how companies have used Codecademy to better equip their workforce. So Dana, thank you so much for kind of giving everyone a high-level overview of Generation. And you kind of talked a little bit about the desire to find a content partner, which you are using Codecademy as. But can you maybe talk about how your program works and kind of how you are actually using Codecademy?
Yep. So an important thing to note is that I sit on our global team. So Generation, as I mentioned, is a global nonprofit. Then we have at present count 16 different country affiliates. So there's Generation Global and there's Generation USA, Generation Thailand, Generation Kenya, etc. So when my team creates a program, like we create the curriculum and the instructional model, et cetera, to get a program off the ground, we then give it to a country team. They can customize it, they can add things, they can see what their market needs and make sure that the content is tailored to that. But we really need to be giving them something that's mostly viable. So when we are trying to come up with content to put on an online program for, we had two programs that initially we were looking for, our junior web developer program and a junior Java developer program. And, we'd been running those programs in person where we designed in-person curricula, which was very reliant on an instructor in this moment in a computer lab with learners. And that curriculum wasn't really going to work in a post-COVID world where so much of our programming had to be done online. So we were looking around, we needed a curriculum that would be somewhat press and play. Like we didn't want to put a burden of like creating assets or structuring assets on the instructors. They're hired and supported in just the delivery of instruction, not so much the creation of pathways or curriculum. We wanted something that could be easily used around the world. So we needed something at a price point that different affiliates with different country budgets could absorb. And we wanted something that really honored our own curricular standards around practice and application of content. We didn't want to just like read official documentation and assume that that would be enough to teach our learner profile. We needed something that could be easy to navigate, that we could wrap around other aspects of our curriculum methodology. So if we wanted to create our own projects and assessments, we could integrate that with what the learning journey from the content partner would provide. And then those were sort of like the table stakes to get the partnership off the ground. And it was great. We've been delighted as the partnership has extended now for a couple of years. We have really benefited from some of the new aspects from Codecademy for Business with better data reporting and more ease of administration and being able to stand up cohorts quickly and group learners so that instructors can see data. Yeah, let me see if there's anything else specifically to your question like that. That's now how we use it. I think of our 16 country affiliates, 6 of them are using Codecademy assets in different programs. So the sun does not set on Generation's use of Codecademy.
That's awesome. There are a couple of things I'm gonna poke about in there.
Yeah.
One, when we started Codecademy for Business, we were I would say heavily reliant in North America to generate business. And I think now that we become part of Skillsoft, and I know a lot of the people on this phone call are from Skillsoft, our existing tech and dev subscribers at Skillsoft, to hear that fact that people are using Codecademy around the world is really, amazing. And I know there's people on here from EMEA, and Skillsoft has a lot of business in those regions. So great to hear that Codecademy is applicable globally. The other thing that I think is super interesting, and I really want to talk more about it given Skillsoft's own heritage, is that interplay between instructor-led training and Codecademy.
Yeah.
So actually, Dana, I don't know if you know this, but Skillsoft has a very large instructor-led training business called Global Knowledge. Actually, a lot of existing Skillsoft clients come from that legacy or heritage GK product that they were using. They were buying Global Knowledge credits. They literally were coming into Skillsoft's offices around the world, and they were taking training within an office. So I think, kind of given that, I would love to know how you had this business that was totally in person, upended by the pandemic, are still to some degree maybe relying on instructor-led training and are kind of marrying that with Codecademy.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I didn't know that there was a connection to Global Knowledge. One of our programs in 2019 in the UK used some global knowledge assets. So everything's full circle. But for us, it comes down to our learner profile. Like we knew when everything switched to online very quickly, like this is something we had our eyes on. We knew that online instruction was going to give us access to more geographies, make sure people who had work commitments could access learning. We were excited about it. Of course, we got real excited about it real fast in March of 2020. That said, our learner profile is not somebody who just needs a login. Like there are those learners. There's probably learners like that, like myself on the call. If I want to learn something, I can go to LinkedIn Learning, Coursera. I can buy something. I can do that myself, self-guided. Give me a few hours and I'll learn what I need to learn. That's not Generation's learner profile. Our learner profile is typically someone for whom traditional education did not fulfill its promise. So we didn't want it to be like, great, well, all we need to do is sponsor a bunch of logins from a content partner and, see you in 10 weeks. We'll see what you picked up from the program. So we knew we needed to create what we call it sync async, where we integrate an instructor-led experience with the content from Codecademy. So if we're going to start in about object-oriented programming, we'll do about a 30-minute intro with an instructor in a Zoom setting. The instructor says, here's what you can expect. Here's what you already know that's going to help you understand this. We're going to check in about 6 hours. You should have gotten through these modules. In the meantime, too, here's a structure for you to have study groups. Here's a practice activity that we want you to complete alongside your practice inside Codecademy. So we kind of are constantly bouncing back and forth between this asynchronous moment where learners are on their own in solitude with their computers and a synchronous moment when they're with a cohort, learning together, boosting each other up, asking questions, relying on an instructor. So in some degrees, this doesn't realize like the scale and the efficiency of a fully online asynchronous course. But if our learner profile could succeed in that, then our business model would be very different. We'd just be spending a lot of time and money raising funds to get people onto platforms. So we're always still looking to like fine tune that though. We have found it is increasingly difficult to find excellent technical instructors who are also willing to take on other aspects of Generation's curriculum methodology, like integrating soft skills or focusing on reflection, or also preparing them for the world of work through interviews, code challenges, all these things that a new technologist needs to be able to do in the market. So we're trying to think too, like, well, where can we fine tune that balance of sync and async to maybe take some of the burden off of an instructor or divide their instruction responsibilities between technical and non-technical folks. And I think that's just something we're going to constantly be noodling on. It's not like if there was a magic wand, we would have found it already, I think. So until then, we'll just keep pushing forward.
How hard was it? I think everyone in March of 2020 was like, oh my God, we have to do everything differently. How hard was it to sort of take things that were entirely in person and then combine it with Codecademy?
I wouldn't say hard so much as like, we came up with the process first. We came up with this idea of sync async, and we came up with some structures. So once we did that pre-work, then it was like, we also had our scope and sequence. We also knew what we wanted our JavaScript program and our Java program to include. So from then it was about first going into the Codecademy assets and matching content. And from there is like building out, adding flesh to the bones that we'd already put together. So that part wasn't hard. The harder part was twofold. One, we had countries that like Codecademy wasn't and still is not yet a fit. Countries that need to, use Portuguese because we're talking about Brazil. And we said, okay, maybe the automated translations, but when the automated translations also translate the code pieces themselves that are based on English, everything falls apart. So we did have to coach them to say, how do we get our traditional in-person program to work for you online? Like that was its own body of work. But the actual part of finding the Codecademy assets and then blending them into our curricular standards, it took time, but I wouldn't say it was very difficult. A lot of that is because, one of the reasons why we chose Codecademy versus some peers in the market, we could see the way things were laid out. We could easily get in and experience them. We could practice them. That part wasn't too hard, but it does take time to scaffold a program.
Any key kind of learnings from scaffolding that program that you would want to share with the group?
Yeah. One thing that Generation has historically always hung our hat on is that we're not going to put something in a training program that's not essential to like week one on the job. We know there's so much a new person can learn as they're fresh to an industry, fresh to a job. But in order to be efficient with time and the time that the learner is giving to the process, which is our programs are full-time. They're typically 9 to 5 for, in our Java program, it's 16 weeks in the US. So we don't want to include anything that's ancillary. And when we are the one in charge of every single minute of content, it was very easy to honor that standard. So we had to realize, like, to partner with something like Codecademy, there might be aspects of a session that we don't think are essential, but the give is worth it, because if we are trying to, like, oh, it's this whole module except the last 3 pages, like that ends up with a very clunky learner experience. So we had to realize that this type of partnership would require us to, like, give a little in order to get a lot. So that was one piece. We always knew this would be a problem, but it still caught us by surprise a couple times. When Codecademy is doing an update of content, we would sometimes be chasing and be like, okay, oh gosh, we need the new URL. We need to get it into our LMS so that the learners click on the right thing. And, it was just one of those things. We always knew it was coming, but we didn't have enough bandwidth to be proactive. And then, and through that, I'll say Codecademy has been a stellar partner. Just incredibly helpful when those moments came. And now we're a little bit better about getting ahead of them. But yeah, it's a big mindset shift for us to go from everything our curriculum team created was in-house, totally under our control. We maintained it, everything was ours, to relying on somebody else. Partnership brings a lot of benefit, but it also introduces a little vulnerability.
And thank you, Dana, for saying that. I mean, one of the things we are working on from a technical perspective, I think will hopefully solve that particular problem. I wanted to actually follow up on something you mentioned earlier on in this conversation about kind of pedagogy. And when you were looking for a provider, sort of you were looking for a specific pedagogy. So for those of us who are on the call from Skillsoft and maybe don't have that much familiarity with Codecademy, one of the things we'll do kind of in the last 5 minutes is actually go into Codecademy and see how you can get to Codecademy from Percipio. And we'll talk about how you can get access to Codecademy. But I wanted to, Dana, kind of ask you what about the Codecademy pedagogy you particularly like, and maybe also talk about what content you most use within the content library, and kind of how that aligned with what you were trying to achieve at Generation.
For sure. So some things that made it stand out for us were, one, that it had embedded practice. Some peer organizations, like, it would have embedded assessment, but it'd be like multiple choice questions, or watch a video, answer one question. And it was just really superficial as far as the platform's ability to engage a learner and what they had learned and applied. We were really drawn to the 3-panel experience, that it's like, you can learn over here, you can reference this up and down while you practice. That was a nice learner UX we could pass on to our learners. Assessment, practice, those are like the 2 biggest things, truly. We also liked the element of quality control, like some of the other things that were out there that were, I don't need to name proper nouns, but like things that were crowdsourced, or things that didn't have somebody like really owning a product. It was far too much vulnerability for us. Like, even if we could find examples of something that was like, this is exceptional, this is exactly the type of lesson we would want to include, we couldn't find it across like the full scope and sequence of content we were trying to find, or we had no promise that that content would stay on the platform. So we just, you couldn't really go there. Also, quite frankly, Codecademy was an exceptional value for us. Some of the peer organizations at that time were like charging 5x what Codecademy was going to charge us. We're a nonprofit. We have a country affiliates who are in charge of staffing their own resources and coming up with their own budget. So we needed to be cost conscious as well. It was kind of a delight that we didn't actually have to sacrifice anything with Codecademy to get at the price point that worked for us. I think now we have something like 1,000, 1,200 users globally.
To answer, or not to further comment on something Dana said, Codecademy has a full in-house team of curriculum experts, and we do produce all of our content in-house. And I think it's something that Codecademy, certainly in the 10 years that we have been around, is just incredibly proud of. We are truly pedagogically driven. We do rely on in-house subject matter experts to produce our content. And I think it really reflects in the quality of the content that we've been able to produce. And I'd love to spend maybe the next 3 minutes, and then we'll do a Codecademy demo and answer. I know there's been at least one question in the chat, is sort of 2 things on the learner focus. So, there are now 1,200 learners that kind of are using Codecademy through Generation. I would love to know 2 things. One, kind of what has been the feedback from the learner population? And then given that there are potential clients on the call, and we are talking to businesses, and at the end of the day, there's the bottom line that businesses and even nonprofits are also trying to achieve. I'd love to get more about the outcomes. Like, what are the outcomes that you are achieving with through Codecademy?
Yeah. First, the feedback's been very positive. Currently, we have users in Pakistan, India, Australia, the United States, Singapore, and Hong Kong, I believe. Oh, in Thailand. Does that make 7? I could be a little rough around the edges, but all of our learners who are using Codecademy are doing it in English. So that's just like one factor that is worth calling out, but they all love it. A couple of our countries will even sponsor their learners to keep their Codecademy licenses for a set amount of months after the graduation from our program, because they know if it's going to take a couple months for a learner to find themselves in the market and get a job, they want to give them a way to keep their skills fresh, or learn new things in advance or in continuation from what they learned with us on the program. So very enthusiastic. We would love to get even more countries on board with it. As far as outcomes for our Java program, for our Java developer program, we have about 60% of our learners are placed in a role within 90 days of completion of our programs. As that number goes out and we get to like 180 days, then the statistics go even up. There's some spikes depending on markets. Like our US placement is a little low compared to our Singapore and India and Thailand placements, but across the board, we're pretty pleased. We know tech is a hard place to break in, especially if you have a learner profile like ours who does not have a college degree, let alone a CS degree. So we always want to drive up those placement numbers higher, but across generation programs, 85% of employers say that the generation grads they hire are as good or better than other hires of more traditional hiring backgrounds when they bring people on. So Codecademy has been a big part of that success for us for those 2 roles that use the program.
And as we think, as people who are on the phone are thinking about some applications about this, I think, as Dana articulated, the learner profile of Generation is someone who is particularly newer to tech, right? They are starting out in their career, but are really coming to the workforce with very sort of little skills.
Yeah.
And Generation has used Codecademy to really help these people, get jobs. And I think the application for this for companies is really when you think about your own workforce, either onboarding new employees, so people who maybe have graduated from college, don't have any technical background, but are potentially want to be moved into a technical role. There's a sort of an analogous use case there.
Sure.
When you think about when people think about reskilling frontline retail workers or frontline bankers who again aren't technically proficient, but there's an opportunity to move them up the economic chain by giving them access to technological education and skills. It's just really kind of valuable. We have 5 minutes, and Dana, I have one more question to you, and then I will go and answer some of the questions.
Sure.
What are the primary pieces of content or languages that you've focused on within the learner base?
We use sort of the introduction to JavaScript content. That's the foundation of both of the programs I've mentioned. And then we go on to use content around Java. And I think even our program in Pakistan uses some content around React in addition to those 2 pathways.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to thank Dana so much for joining me today, for being an amazing partner. Dana alluded to this earlier, but the reporting capabilities that we have as part of Codecademy for Business and are actually coming to Percipio are shaped in a lot of ways by some product feedback that Dana gave our team. So just Dana and Generation have been amazing partners. Their use case, I think, is so broadly applicable to really so many companies and so many learners. And the fact that there are 1,200 people from Generation using the tool and really connecting to opportunity is really sort of the true goal of what we at Codecademy and Skillsoft are trying to do. So thank you, Dana. Thank you for participating today. I know there's 2 questions in the chat, so I want to answer those and also show people how to access Codecademy from within Percipio. And again, if there are any questions, I will start answering them. And I also just want to thank everyone for joining. Spending 30 minutes with us is just, it's so very meaningful to us. We love talking to our potential clients. And thank you everyone for joining. So I'm going to share my screen and I will show everyone how Codecademy is integrated through Percipio. And I will also answer the 2 questions which are in the chat as I do this. Without further ado, this should look familiar, hopefully, to most people. This is Percipio, which is Skillsoft's learning platform. And Codecademy is available here within the library, and it's broken down by languages as well as subjects. So within Percipio, you can view our curriculum via language. So you could go into Java and you could see all of our content that we have around Java. Or you could also go in and look at our content by subject. So we have all of our content here organized by AI, cloud computing, code foundations, data analytics, cybersecurity, and data engineering. This is available to answer the first question that I got in the chat. This is available through Percipio to people who purchase Codecademy for Enterprise. So Codecademy for Enterprise is an additional purchase that needs to be purchased in addition to Tech and Dev Expert or Skillsoft Expert, which are 2 existing Skillsoft products that are in market. So someone asked this question, all of what you see now would be available if you purchase Codecademy and then you entitle Codecademy to your learners via Percipio. So I think that answers actually both Phil's question as well as the other question, which is how do you get Codecademy? And the answer really is it's a sort of incremental add-on purchase that really gives a sort of richer learning experience to your existing tech and dev subscription. And the richer experience is something Dana did also allude to, which is our learning environment. And so what I'm going to do today is show you how to get over to the Codecademy learning environment from Percipio. So Codecademy is available within Percipio, and when you press launch, you will get ported over into Codecademy, so it will open a new tab. However, through the magic of single sign-on, you will basically be in the Codecademy environment where you can start a course or you can resume a course. So it will remember that that the user, for example, had already started this course. So this is our Python 3 course. Python 3, I believe, is one of our most popular courses. And this view, which you are looking at, is the sort of most traditional 3-panel view that Codecademy is well known for. On the left-hand side is our curriculum. I like to think about this as a textbook. And this is, when Dana was talking about pedagogy and Dana was talking about sort of the content, this is all about the content that our team creates in-house. So it's instructive, it tells people what to do. And then in the middle, we actually have a real-time code editor. So when I press run, when I press run, it is going to say, I actually didn't do anything. And I actually cannot move forward in this lesson until I do the thing that is being requested of me. So I will do this now, and I will press run. Hello world. I will press run. And it should work. And if you don't know, you can always get the solution. And then, as you can see, the output panel shows the output of what the person types into the code editor. And then you can actually move forward in the lesson. So this is Codecademy. This is what we are most well known for, this sort of instructive, this marriage of content and practice and feedback. That is just a very, very, very rich learning experience that is really unique to Codecademy and that you really cannot get really elsewhere. And it is a really great tool to use in conjunction with sort of ILT programs or any instructor-led training as well. So I know that we are almost at time. I hope I was able to answer all of these questions live. If anyone is interested in hearing more about Codecademy, please put your email in the chat or reach out to your tech and dev specialist or your generalist at Skillsoft, and we are more than happy to give people demos as well as eval access. We are incredibly proud of Codecademy, incredibly proud of the work that we've been able to do with companies and organizations like Generation, and we want to be able to kind of work with you as well. So I want to thank everyone so much for attending. I want to thank Dana for being our sort of guest, my co-host, and thank her for being just a truly amazing partner for us over the last couple of years.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.